new. Let's zoom on that a little bit. I actually don't know what the resolution is on those things, whether I need to zoom on the videos or not. So anyway, file, new, project, and this is a WPF application, and I'm just going to Windows form example, which I don't think is exactly what I called it before. I'm going to do OK. I'm not going to save what I just did. All right, so it should load the designer. Okay, so we're there. Down in here, I just want to make sure that the grid is there. It is. What I did first is I drug a label onto the toolbar, a toolbox, from the toolbox to the window, and then I moved over to the properties. You can give the label a name here. You can also, in the content area, give it, so I'm going to say MP mile or mileage calculator.
What's the name of the content?
They're different things.
The name, I would have thought the name would pop up. That's in the content.
Right. The content is the property of the label that display what is it going to display. So it's the text that it's going to display. Does that make sense? So I'm going to drag another label on here. And this label, I'm going to give a name for sure. This says label 1. I'm going to call it label miles. And I'm going to say enter the mileage as the content. Okay. So I said enter the mileage, and then I'm going to get a text box, and I'm going to put it right beside there. This text box will be where we enter the mileage. Actually, I don't want a text block. I want a text box. The one right below it. Text block is if you want a big block of text. I just want to enter something. Text boxes are what you can use to enter things in. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to just call it text box miles, and I'm going to get rid of the text that's in it. And you'll see that then it's an empty text box. Does that make sense? I'm doing a little bit fast, trying to catch up a little bit.
So technically, if you had wanted to, you could technically remove the label, but have the placeholder text as enter mileage here.
You could, yeah.
Okay.
Well, so you could put enter mileage here, but there actually are some ways where you can mask it. If you just type the text in, that means they have to delete the text before they can enter the miles.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just like a placeholder.
There is a placeholder you could use.
Okay.
There is a property that allows you to put a placeholder in there, which might be actually a nicer way to do it. It's up to. This is, I think, the easier to explain.
Oh, okay.
So I'm entering another label, and I'm going to say enter the gallons. So I'm going to call it label gallons. I'm leaving the label there so I have some idea what they are. Actually, the ones that I'm not going to refer to in code, like I'm not going to refer to the prompts in code, they probably don't have to be named. But I'm going to say enter the total gallons. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing we did. And you can move these and you can make these as neat as you want. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. I'm going to get another text box, put it here. I'm going to go to the properties, say text box gallons, and we'll take the text out of it. as I said, and you could color these, you could do all sorts of things. These are in a grid, so you could, we're just dragging them and dropping them, but you could locate them precisely. You might notice, this is just for your information, notice how it's putting everything that we drag onto the thing, it writes here. And notice that it's giving, it has a height and it has a margin and it has position information. All of that's there. It's kind of like on a website where you'd be doing absolute positioning. And you can adjust all of that. You can get a lot finer control over this than what I'm giving right now. Let's not worry about the price. That was one of the other things we could do. But let's do radios, because your assignment has those. So I'm going to do a radio button, and I'm just going to say radio button. What I'm thinking of doing is the size of the tank or something, or we could just use what is there and say it's the price. I don't know. What do you want to do for the radio buttons? I just need to show you how to use a radio button. Size of the tank. All right, so let's do, what are some typical sizes? We only want like 2 or 3. 10, 15, 20. So let's say this one is 10. And for the content of that, I'm going to say 10 gallons. Okay. And then I'm going to do another radio button. Couple of things. If you only have one set of radio buttons, you know, they're all working together, you can just draw them onto the form, and you can do that for your assignment. If you're going to have multiple sets of radio buttons, you have to put them into containers so that they're separate from each other. Does that make sense?
How do you put it in the container?
So there's things over here like a panel, and there's a dock panel and a stack panel. So basically you have to create a panel for the different sets. But if you do them just on the form, then they're all treated as if they're part of the same group. I'm going to call this one, so this one will be 15. So I'll just call it radio button 15. And you could use a number there, but and I'll just say for the content 15 gallons. And then we'll do one more. Well, 2 more actually. I'm going to do 20. So I'm going to just call this radio button 20. Without I should put an E in there probably. And I'm going to say 20 gallons. And I'm going to put one other on there, because this is part of the assignment too. I just need to find the radio button. And I'm going to say other. So I'll say radio button other. Can't type. And I'll just say other here. Not there. Click mode. Beside the other one, I will put a little text box. And if I post this like on the blog or even on GitHub, you can just copy the XML and it'll create the form. So if you have problems with this. So for the other, I'm going to do this as text box other. And I'll get rid of the and if you like pretty, we can do that over there. All right, so, and then the last thing I'm going to do on this, and I think we might actually get through this, we'll see. I'm going to get a button, and I'm just going to put it over here. Well, actually, there's 2 things I need. One is a button. I don't know, what do we want to call it? Submit. And let's change the content to submit. And the other thing that I need, and you can sort of stretch this down if you need. See if I can stretch that down. Maybe not. There are ways to stretch it, but what I want to do is I need a label on here. And I think I'm just going to do one label. I'm just going to put it at the bottom here. And this is to display our mileage and range. So I'm going to just say label. I'm just going to call it label result. I'm just going to leave label on there for right now, but only because so it isn't invisible. In real life, I'd get rid of that. This is our complete form. So basically, we're going to enter. It's interesting. I have to get this down a little. All right, we're going to enter our mileage, enter the total gallons, choose one of these or other, submit it, and then it should tell us our mileage and our range. Does that make sense? If you're into form design, you could do better than this. I just want to show you the gist. How are you doing?
I lost my properties window.
So you should be able to right click. Then it shows up over there. We can move it. Pull it all the way out. Where's the property window? And then if we go to there. Oh, it still doesn't do it. But and then let's undo that. And then we'll do that. Maybe okay. So you have to select something. Oh, so why is it not? Something, yeah, but I'm not sure what it is. So what did you do? Well, don't worry about it too much. This is just a demo, and I'll help you when you get the actual. It's just that there isn't a lot of time left to get it actually to function. So, and I will get you. I'll help you with the forms and stuff. We'll get your toolbox, your properties back. I'm not sure where they went. Things disappear. There are so many things you can set and off. You know, so many properties going around. It's hard to tell with. All right. So for the code for this, there's a couple of things that I want to do. Do you guys have that mileage thing that we did last time? If you do, what you can do is right-click, add, existing item, and you could go find it. And what I would do is just, so mine, it was object example 1, right? And we had a mileage class. So I'm just going to add the mileage class. So what I did is I went to where it was and I just added the class that we wrote last time. Now, if that fails for you, if you don't have that, so I'm just going to add it. Add. So notice I now have the mileage class. If you don't have that, you can get it, just add a new class, name it mileage, go to GitHub. So GitHub, www.github.com/spconger. And the one that I just did, if you go to repositories, it should be the one on the top. ITC 110 class example. 2 is actually not the one. Let's go back. Repositories. And it's class example 1. And there's a mileage class there. Yeah, that's all you need. And just do raw, copy it, and paste it into a new class. Do raw first, otherwise you get a bunch of HTML you don't need.
HTML is always helpful.
Well, it's not helpful inside of a C# class. All right. So again, this is just demo. It'll be on film. It seems to be recording. And I will post the code. And I will help you do it when it gets to the assignment time. So a couple of things I have to do with the mileage. Notice we have this page, and we also have this page, which is the code behind. So the public main window, initialize component. I want to see what the actually what the namespace is. Is it just WPF application 1? I thought I had changed that, but anyway, I need to go to my mileage class and give it the same namespace so that it can see it. Right, so it's in the same group and it can see it. So I'm going back to the form and I'm going to double click the button. And what that does is it opens up, again, that code window, but it gives me the default event for that button. And we haven't talked about events. And events are basically things that happen when a user does something, right? It's like click on the button. That's what this responds to. We could spend hours on events, but the thing is that objects can have events. They have things that they can respond to. A button can respond to a click. They always look like this: private, void, button, submit. I mean, whatever it is, the name of it, underscore click. And they always have the object sender. That's basically what object is sending this message, right? So if you look at this inside the code when it's running, it'll say that it's sent from button submit. You can use one event for several objects if you want, but we aren't going to. And then if there's any kind of other arguments that have to be passed to the event, this has it. This is actually an array of objects, or a collection of objects, or a dictionary of different things. For the most part, you can ignore them, but they have to be there. Does that make sense? So what we want to do in here, I am just going to do it all inside the button, which is actually not great form, but we've got like 15 minutes. So I am going to declare the mileage class. So it sees mileage. I'm just going to make it im equals new mileage, which is okay. We do need to add one method to the mileage, right? Let's do it in a minute. Let's use this other thing first. So we need to add one to figure out the range. That won't take very long, but let's just get the mileage first. So I am going to basically just say m dot so we want to get the miles first, right? Equals double dot parse. I'm doing some things that are probably, so what was the name of our text box? It was text box mileage. Text box miles. Dot text. Text is a property of the text box. It's the part that actually contains the text. I'm just passing the text box directly there. You should actually validate these a bit first. Make sure that what's entered is actually going to be a double and things like that. You could do a try parse here just like you could in a console. And then I'm just going to do m.gallons equals, and again, double parse text box gallons dot text. Okay, so we're using the text box is kind of like we use console read lines, right? They're the input. And then I'm just going to do for now, and then we'll fix it. We'll do the other part. I'm going to say label result dot content. For some reason, labels have content and text boxes have text. Equal, and I'm going to say your mileage or miles per gallon, about just MPG. There's no placeholder here, like there is with the console. So I have to do, and I'm going to do m dot get miles per gallon dot to string. So it'll convert it to a string for display. Does that make sense? This is kind of like what we did, right, in the console with the object. The principle is the same. We have an object that calculates the mileage. All we're doing here is we're going to pass it we're going to declare that object. We're going to pass it the information, and we're going to get the result. I'm going to use the radio buttons in a minute, but this should work just by itself. What questions do you have about that? You understand how this is coming in from the text boxes. You should validate them, not just passing, but that's the mileage. So they have to have the same. They have to have the same namespace. So what I did is I took the namespace from the Windows app and I copied it over to the mileage. So mine was just WP application 1 for whatever, WPF application 1. So on the mileage class, I changed its namespace to the same thing. So that's probably, if it's not seeing it, that's probably why. They need to have the same namespace. Does that make sense? Did you get that? Did it work? Let's say I want to go to the window XML CS. So I'm going to try to run this and then I'll debug for you a little bit. So, not sure what this is for. But we got the mileage calculator. I'm going to enter the mileage. Let's say, just for test again, 100. I'm going to enter the gallons as 5. When I do submit, it's way down at the bottom because I didn't span this form, but your MPG is 20. I might move that label a little bit. Right, and if I did like something more realistic, like 3, I don't know, my Prius will get like about 490, 2, about 10, and so you're 49.2. And you can just change them. There's ways you can blank these out afterwards too if you want to clear them, and you can set focus. And the form design is obviously bad. I didn't put an exit on here, but you can exit here with the X. You could put a button on there to exit. I might real quickly just move this label just a little higher, maybe over here. All right. Questions on that? Does this make some sense? It's fairly easy code, except you might not know where things come from.
I'm going to have problems doing another mileage M, and it's still not right.
They have the same namespace. So this is namespace is North Assignment.
I got this on here.
Yeah, so I don't know what that is. It's got to be North. You got to do your. Finish each seat. Let's see what this class is like. Class name mileage. Rebuild. Rebuild.
So yeah, two other people logged into this computer
How did you add it?
instead of just completely signing out.
I know, I was signed up.
And so but typically there's just the one guy. These other two, now that there's the third person, is just running so slow. And I don't know on Windows 10 how to log out other people. If they left your items in there, they just either basically. Otherwise, I put it out regardless if they have stuff running or not.
It's not a solution.
I don't have a solution.
We got to investment for more details.
No, you just. It's 10. So you just erase
That was from the director's house?
So if you want.
Although technically,
It's a label.
I've noticed that.
Form is not big.
No.
And I'll go. Actually recording. Okay. Oh, so now I have to find
And it was the attachment.
It's just
Yeah.
like, so I almost.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Like, close it out, like, somehow.
Same thing happened to me.
So I didn't say it's that. So I hit some. Changed my.
That process.
Or actually, this room is.
All right, so.
No, wait, we did say that you just wanted to show us that shit. Taking in consideration of the calculation.
Sure, we're.
Yeah, I should say the.
so many, there's so much stuff. You know what?
That might be it.
Yeah.
All right, I'll help it. I'll help you with. I want to show you how to use the buttons, and it'll be done. And I knew this would be. This is right. Don't panic. We'll get through this. All right. In the mileage, two problems found with people with the mileage class is make sure that you add it. You add it to the application solution. So if you add it to the solution, the application can't see it. The program can't see it. The other thing is make sure that the notices are the same. So other than that, I mean, this is from having to rewrite all what I wanted. I'm going to add one more method here. And, because just to get the range. So I'm going to do public double get range. I think I'll just pen the do we want int or double for gas tank size? Anybody? Int. I'm going to just call it gas tank size.
Get rage.
Get rage, I can see that. All right, so the only calculation we have to do is we want to get, we need to know the miles per gallon, right? So I'm going to say get miles per gallon. Times gas tank size. Does that make sense? This will calculate the miles per gallon because that's basically how far can you go on a range is how far can you go on a tank of gas. If you can go 20 miles on a tank of gas and it's a 10-gallon tank, you can go 200 miles. Right? So what we'll do is this method is there now so that we can use our radio buttons. Need a second on that? You got it? I'm not sure I ever did this before for you. Rather than assign this to a variable and then do it, you can actually use as long as it returns a value. If this were a void method, it wouldn't work. Does that make sense? Because the value will actually be what it sees here. It'll go up there, it'll calculate, come down here, and it'll use the result of the calculation.
So now the buttons will work with just that.
Well, so we have to do some code with them.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like.
So I'm going to go, and before we get here to where we label it, so we need to figure out, so we're going to say if, lowercase just like elsewhere, why I got my caps lock, if, so we named it radio, we got radio button 10, dot is checked, right? That's a property that tells you whether or not it is. So if that's true, if it's checked, for some reason it won't do the straight Boolean. You know, the Boolean would be just if radio button checked, close parentheses. You have to say equal true.
A question.
Yeah.
Would it be better to do it with bases or like switch?
Oh, you could do a switch, whichever you
Because
want.
it's fixed, right? You have 4 choices.
Right. Way. Although you have to say is checked for each radio button. I'm going to do it with if, but you could use a switch, whichever you want. So I'm going to say that, actually, let's create a variable. Tank size. So we'll do int. I'm just going to call it tank. If is 10, then tank equals 10. Right? And then I'm going to do else if, and the thing will be radio button 15 is checked. So if it's the one that's checked, then we'll say that tank equals 15. And then we'll do one more else if. And it'll be radio button 20 dot is checked. I spelled 20 wrong. Anyway, is checked equals true. Then it's tank equals 20. Now, the only other option, well, it could be that none of them are checked. We'll ignore that for right now. Else, and what I'm going to do here is tank equals or int parse text other. Is that what we called it?
Yes.
Yeah. Text box other text. I could say ways. That needs a semicolon. I'll walk through it too. I know it's really big right now. Let's zoom down. Okay, and then what I need to do is to get that value. So I'm going to do double range equals, what was the class name that I gave it? M. M dot get range, and we'll pass it the tank, you know, how big the tank is. And then down here, I'm just going to do, before the semicolon, plus, I'm going to make it space here. Your range is plus, and actually, if I wanted to, I could just do this down here instead of doing this. Except I need to do toString here or it will complain. Does that make sense? So the main thing I wanted to show you, because it's for the assignment, is that you can go through and you can do your radio buttons, basically just test to see which is checked. And it basically, when you run it, and then don't panic because I'll give you lots of help. So let's zoom this up. Now, we haven't done any error trapping, and we might talk about that before the end here, because there's all sorts of ways this could go bad with the data entry, right? So I'm going to enter the mileage. Let's just do 350. Oh, not 3,000. Let's just say 350. Total gallons, let's just do something bizarre like 17. Let's choose one of these. Now notice you can do, because they're in the same form and there's no other group, right? Only one radio buttons only allow one to be checked at a time. So let's do 15 gallons. If I submit that, whoa, The range isn't showing up. Why not?
Oh, because your text field
Isn't long enough.
You're getting cut off.
All right. It's fairly long, but let's make it longer. Not crooked, just longer. I think it is crooked though.
Yeah.
Oh well, the hell with it. All right, one last time. And then we'll try the other to make sure it works. So I'm going to do, so I got 350, and you could format the numbers. We'll say that the number of gallons was 12, 4, got a 15-gallon tank. So you might want to do something with the numbers so that they're not quite so big. I mean, so many decimal places. So let's try it with the other. So let's say for some reason we have, how big a tank do we want? 12 gallons? So then it would be. Now again, if I enter something other than an integer there, it will crash. If I enter something, yeah.
It's not very good.
All right.
That whole, the way we have content, it's been very helpful. If I'm able to get range for M dot, it makes the whole thing mad that I take out the M dot and just to get range tank is bad.
Right, you need to have, well, let's look at it in a second here. That's basically it. And what I'll do is I'll post it probably on GitHub because there's a lot of files here. And I'll help you with it when you do it, right? So. You got it? Which part?
We're looking to give you the range.
I just made my label longer, although I also in the process made it askew. That's something you couldn't do before. Windows Presentation Foundation, you could only do square. I mean, you could only square them.
Right now, where your mouse is at.
Yay. Except now it's screw on the other side. And if I do that, that looks better. I'm not sure it's totally square yet. All right, so, and again, you could do, if you really want to play with these once we do them, you can apply all sorts of fancy gradients and different color schemes. And if you break it up into sections, different sections could have different colors. I mean, it could be really, you can make these forms really nice. But you don't have to for the assignment. This covers most of what you need for the assignment. Monday will be an open lab. I don't expect you to be able to just start to do this. So I expect to run around and help people get it going. I will post it. Questions? Any other questions before we call it a day and a week? I did want to mention one other thing. I don't know if any of you know Sophia. She's doing a presentation this afternoon at 3:30 on React, which is a JavaScript platform in here. That might be really interesting. I'm going to try to attend. So, okay. Did that confuse totally? How do you feel? If you have loads of ambition this weekend, you might try it on your own just to play with it. Do something a little simpler, maybe.
Or complicated.
Or more complicated, whichever you prefer. In general, for all this stuff, the more you can play with it, the more it's going to stick. And it's okay to fail when you're playing with it. Try something, can't find it. And Google is your best friend. If you don't know how to do something, look at it and Google.
Yeah.
I think actually, I'm not sure it's in here now, but there was a direct link to Google from Visual Studio. at least in one version.
Would you want the additional code?
I know they want you to use Bing, but in real life, Google's your better option.
Mine doesn't
I
actually.
bet he's gonna post it online. So don't worry. I think he said he was gonna.
Yeah. I have this monitor classroom of times I have them next quarter. So getting my coffee needs to be difficult. Yeah, there is.
It doesn't seem to advantage.
Yeah, it will not be Patrick out.
Yeah.
That won't work.
Oh.
Although I thought there was another person signed into it, but it's doing what I thought. It's when you sign out, it just shows that you were the last one in. I signed out the way out. It's something you need to do.
Yeah, I'm signed out all the way.
Okay.
Whatever he's got going on is messing with me.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one. Tuesday. right?
Yes, Tuesday.
Okay. So it won't let you in at all? I think I can, yeah.
See ya.
Yeah. Have a good weekend.
Can I see the Tuesday classes on the 18th?
Yeah, it should be. I'm going to post it in just a minute. It's still filming, actually. So there will be